You ever meet someone who can tell you everything about something, but has no real hands-on experience with it? Take wine, for instance. They know the region, the vintage, the tasting notes. They can describe it perfectly, but they've never actually developed a palate. They can recite the vocabulary, but they haven't actually tasted the work. That's the difference between AI literacy and AI fluency. Hi, I'm Anaya Steele, and this is Prompted, AI Beyond the Prompt. This channel is about learning to think clearly and make sound decisions in a world defined by AI. Not theory, not hype, just clear, real-world guidance that helps you understand and shape the future of the technology, rather than letting it shape you. Today we're talking AI literacy versus AI fluency, and why getting it wrong means you're going to be out there revving the engine, burning fuel, and never leaving the driveway. Now, before we get into the conversation, I want to tell you what brought this episode to life, because it matters. I recently sat in on a presentation with guest speaker Sol Rashidi. If you've never heard of her, she's the world's first chief AI officer, a Forbes AI maverick, and simply one of the most credible voices in this entire space. Impressive, right? As I listened to her presentation, the way she wove together literacy basics, fluency as deeper capability, when to step back from the tool entirely, the risks of intellectual atrophy, and those sharp judgment calls on what we should and shouldn't automate, something clicked. The quiet doubt that creeps in sometimes, wondering if anyone out there is really hearing this, if the effort is worth the grind when life is already full, went silent, replaced by that clear, energizing sense. This stuff is needed right now, and the timing couldn't be better. The people who need to hear it are out there. They just haven't stumbled across this little corner of the internet yet. So yeah, keep climbing. I've put her website link in the description. Go find her. You'll see exactly what I mean. She's the real deal. She spoke about AI literacy and AI fluency, and I immediately knew that I needed to talk about this on Prompted. She's bringing it to organizations. I'm bringing it to you, as an individual. Same concept, different kitchen. Let's get into it. So, let's look at literacy first. And let's be clear, literacy is a win. AI literacy is awareness. It's knowing the tools exist, understanding what prompting means, feeling comfortable enough to open the app and type something in without feeling like you're defusing a bomb. Literate means you've read the wine books. You know what a Bordeaux is. You understand the difference between a Cabernet and a Merlot on paper. And literacy absolutely matters. It's the entry point. Nobody skips it. But it's easy to get comfortable at the literacy stage because the early wins are so good. People figure out how to use ChatGPT or Claude for a handful of tasks, get some decent results, plant their flag, and stop exploring. They've read the books. They just haven't picked up the glass yet. Literacy is the ticket that gets you into the door of the show. It's just not the view from the front row. So, what's on the other side of that door? That's fluency. And fluency is something else entirely. Most of the advice out there makes fluency sound like a download, like you just collect the top 50 prompts, paste them into a chatbot, and suddenly you're advanced. Sol Rashidi calls fluency a leap, and she's absolutely right. Out here in the real world, that leap feels a lot less like a tech upgrade and a lot more like muscle memory. I define fluency as the ability to walk into a situation with a tool or model you've never touched before and still produce something useful. Not because you've memorized prompts, but because you've internalized how these systems think. Context, assumptions, chain of thought logic. Now here's where the gap shows up. A literate user gets a bad AI response and thinks, this tool doesn't work. But a fluent user? They get that same bad response and immediately start troubleshooting the logic. They're asking, what did my prompt assume the AI already knew, that I never actually told it? What context was missing? What role should I have assigned before I even started? Quick real-world example. Literate user asks, write a cold email for a job. Gets generic corporate mush. Blames the AI. Fluent user says, you are a ruthless but polite executive recruiter with 15 years placing mid-level marketers. Rewrite this cold email to land an interview at a Series B SaaS company. Make it 120 words max. Zero fluff. Open with a specific pain point from their recent funding round. Boom. Results. A literate user asks AI for an answer. A fluent user builds a system that produces answers repeatedly. Now stop for a second and really ponder what's changing in those two scenarios. Is the technology different? No. The tool remains the same, but the human is evolving. A fluent user understands the why behind the work, which means they can build a new approach from scratch the moment the situation changes. Now, does that mean you'll never need a tutorial again? Of course not, especially when we start talking about agents, those AI programs that can actually do tasks for you, not just talk to you. You have to understand the mechanics of the engine before you try to drive it across country. Because if you don't, and that agent goes rogue, you'll be the one left on the side of the road cleaning up the digital crime scene. But fluency isn't just about handling chaos. It's about preventing it in the first place, especially when the stakes get personal. The difference is this. A fluent user doesn't freeze when a model gives them something weird. They develop what I call the AI palette. Yes, back to the wine scenario. Don't judge me. They don't just chug the wine because it's purple and in a glass. No, they pick it up, they swirl it, they sniff it. They catch that sharp metallic note of a hallucination, that cardboard aftertaste of a model phoning it in. And they can tell you exactly what they're tasting because they know what quality is supposed to look like. In a world where most folks are just gulping down generic AI-generated garbage, your palate becomes the advantage. We aren't just drinking the juice, we're running the cellar. That shift. When you stop asking AI for answers and start collaborating with it, that's the fluency line. And this channel's entire goal is to help you cross it. Because literacy is knowing the vocabulary. Fluency is speaking the language without thinking about the grammar. Now here's where it gets really interesting. True AI fluency isn't just knowing how to use the tool well, it's knowing when not to use it at all. Sit with that for a second. In a world where everyone is screaming, use AI for everything, the fluent user is the one quietly asking, should I though? Here's a real example. Someone is going through a difficult conversation at work, a performance issue with someone they manage, someone they genuinely care about. They ask AI to write the talking points. AI produces something professional, structured, technically appropriate, and completely stripped of the human judgment that makes that conversation land with dignity instead of damage. That's not an AI failure. That's just a moment where the human element was the only thing that actually mattered. Fluency is knowing when to let the human lead. And then there's the part nobody wants to talk about because it requires some self-honesty. Sometimes we force AI into every corner of our lives because we finally learned how to use the hammer. So now everything looks like a nail. We use it to write a sympathy card. We use it to brainstorm a vision for a business we haven't even started thinking through yet. We use it to summarize a book we actually needed to read to understand. That's not efficiency. That's erosion. Sol Rashidi calls it intellectual atrophy. Researchers call it cognitive atrophy. I just call it what it is. Outsourcing your thinking until there's nothing left to outsource. Over-relying on AI doesn't just produce weaker outputs, it atrophies the muscle, the one you keep outsourcing. And a weak thinking muscle is the one thing no AI tool can fix for you. Sol shared something else that for me was the single best teachable moment of the entire talk. She floated an idea, building an AI agent to manage her network of contacts. Now pause there. We're not talking about a basic contact list. Nope. We're talking about decades of layered context, history, nuance, reputation, trust. With that kind of depth, that's not a bot. That's power, indexed. Quick side note, I would give up my entire chat history and a full month of Sunday resets, and if you know me, that is not a small sacrifice, just to see her speed dial. Okay, back to the point. On the surface, it sounds like an excellent use of technology, right? Until the what if shows up. What happens if that agent goes rogue? That single question paused the project because she realized something critical. She wouldn't just be organizing data. She would be digitizing deeply personal relationships, information from people who trusted her, people who expected a human connection, not an entry inside an autonomous system they never agreed to. So she asked herself a harder question. Is the convenience for me worth the risk to others who never even got a vote in the decision? In that pause, that was judgment. The question was never, can I build this? Of course she could. The real question was, should I? And then there's the final dimension of fluency, knowing when not to trust the machine. AI can sound certain while being completely wrong. It won't tap you on the shoulder and tell you it's lying. It can cite sources that don't exist, invent dates that never happened, and present fabricated facts with total authority. It will look you dead in the eye and make it up. A fluent user trusts AI selectively and always knows exactly where the human check belongs in the process. So, let's make this personal. We've talked about developing an AI palette. Now it's time for a tasting. 3 questions. Be honest, nobody's grading you. Just a tasting, no competition, no judging. Okay. Question 1. When AI gives you a bad answer, what's your first instinct? Blame the tool or reevaluate your prompt? Fluency is taking ownership of the output. Question 2. When you sit down with a new AI tool, do you feel like you're starting from zero, or do you recognize the engine under the hood? Fluency is understanding the universal logic of AI so that even when the interface changes, your ability to get results stays the same. Question 3. Do you verify AI outputs before acting on them, especially for anything health, legal, financial, or factual? If verification isn't already a reflex, that's the gap that gets people in trouble. 3 questions. If any of them made you pause, good. That pause? That's the distance between where you are and where you're headed. This channel exists to help build your path to AI fluency, not to turn you into a technologist, but to make you someone who can sit down with any tool in any situation and produce results that actually move the needle. Because look, the edge won't belong to the person with the most bookmarked tools. That's just digital clutter. The real advantage belongs to the person who knows when it's okay to let the AI drive and exactly when to grab the wheel. Don't just learn AI. Learn to think with it. That's the mission. If this sparked something for you, if the distinction between literacy and fluency just gave you a new map for your own journey, pass it on. And please comment and subscribe. I'm Anaya Steele, and you've been prompted. Until next time.